Well, it has been a busy few weeks. We've had an incredible 8 F1 team launches since our last video, and we want to dive right in with our thoughts and reviews on each one. First up was Alpha Tauri. This was an interesting launch. It was combined with the launch of the Alpha Tauri Autumn-Winter 2021 fashion collection, which was a choice. The launch video was 3.5 minutes long, and at least 2.5 of those minutes was dedicated to mannequin-like models staring vacantly as they glided around in their fall fashion wear. It was creepy. It got creepier at the end when Gasly and Tsunoda turned up with the same uncanny valley mannequin look, and I'm still not over what they did to poor Yuki's hair, but yeah. The car looked good. They've inverted the colours, so the AT02 has more prominent deep navy blue with the white as a highlight compared to the opposite look last year. The best part of the look is clearly the white rims on the wheels. It looks really cool, I'm not gonna lie, so simple yet effective. Will it date quickly? Probably, but right now we're loving it. As with other cars this year, the body closely resembles the 2020 car as a result of the tight rules on carrying over major mechanical parts. Alpha Tauri were offered Red Bull's 2020 rear suspension for this year, but they chose to stick with their existing suspension based on the 2019 Red Bull. The car does have a slightly slimmer nose than last year, and as with the McLaren, there's been the changes at the rear to reduce downforce and a thinner floor, but that's pretty much it. Next up was Alfa Romeo, where the weirdness continued. Summed up with the dancer, piano, and car emojis, this launch truly had everything. A beautiful piano duet, dry ice across the stage, barefoot dancers, one in red, one in white, and the two presenters live in Warsaw, Poland, home of Orlen, Alfa Romeo's sponsor. The car was revealed against the backdrop of a pretty cool red, white, and black video, showing elements of the engineering and some pretty cool wind tunnel imagery. And while it's nothing jaw-droppingly different, it is a pretty car. Much like Alpha Tauri, they have somewhat inverted the colours of the livery. What was red last year is now white, and what was white last year is now red. It's effective without being anything new. The C41 has a slightly revised front end with a slimmer nose, and once again the changes to the floor and diffuser areas present on all the cars to reduce downforce on the rear of the car. However, they do have an upgrade in the form of the Ferrari 066 power unit, which will also be in the Haas and Ferrari cars, and the team are clearly hoping that will give them some race pace improvement in 2021. Kimi, Antonio, and reserve driver Robert Kubica joined the car on the stage clad in their race gear, with Kimi actually managing to sound borderline enthusiastic for the coming year. The presenters highlighted the testing work Kubica has been doing in the run-up to the start of the season, which was a nice touch, and managed to focus on all three of the drivers. It was a pretty good launch, and was especially effective coming after what felt like a bit of a lacklustre showing from Alpha Tauri. Lastly, we had the Red Bull launch. This launch was perhaps the quietest so far, with just a sub 60-second video and a few pictures to show off the car. The livery is the same as we've been used to since 2016, and the shape of the car is almost identical to last year. Perhaps the biggest difference is the loss of the Aston Martin branding now they have their own team. The RB16B may look underwhelming, but if the confidence of the drivers and Christian Horner are anything to go by, they seem confident that they have a car with lots of potential to bring the championship fight to Mercedes at last. Mercedes launched the W12 in a live stream hosted by Steve Jones, who spoke with Toto Wolff, Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas to get a glimpse into what's in store for the Silver Arrows this year. He raised the question of Lewis's one-year contract, and also quizzed Valtteri on how difficult it is to be Lewis's teammate. The answers were pretty much as expected, but still worth watching to get a bit of a look into the way the two work together. Lewis also took the opportunity to take a dig at Pirelli's tyres for the year, but did highlight that the changes, and lack of changes, could make it a competitive year. The launch video was pretty slick, highlighting the team's performance and tech prowess before the car was brought into the studio. The W12 has a black livery very similar to last year's, though they've switched back to a glossy finish, and added 1 million AMG logos on the rear of the car, along with the deep burgundy of the Ineos logo. Toto made a point of highlighting the message of the black livery, namely the support of both Lewis and the team for the cause of equality and diversity and tackling global racism. This is always a point that draws both criticism and praise from fans at opposite ends of the spectrum, but whatever side you're on, the car does look good, and is one of the few cars this year not covered head to toe in blue, red and white. Mercedes say the car has considerable aerodynamic changes, at least in part due to the new regs for the rear of the car, and there are also improvements to the suspension and engine, which apparently includes some completely new innovations. That said, the car was deliberately displayed in a way that hid those changes, so they're keeping them hidden from their competitors for a while yet. Alpine, the team formerly known as Renault, were up next with a very innovative and modern take on launches in COVID times, with digital versions of Esteban Ocon, the team, and host Lee Mackenzie beamed into a virtual studio. It sounds a bit odd, but it was actually a pretty cool launch, with a lot of visually pleasing imagery of past Alpine rally cars morphing into the new F1 car, as the virtual studio dropped away to reveal the backdrop of the Alps. Alpine is a rebranding of Renault's F1 outfit, and this means we get a brand new livery, swapping the black and yellow car for one that better reflects Alpine's motorsport heritage. The A521 looks good, mostly decked out in a metallic blue with details of red and white on the body and the French tricolour on the wings. It will still be powered by a Renault engine, and the team say this car is an evolution of the 2020 car, with the structural elements carried over in compliance with the regs. They do say there has been development and improvement on any parts that have not been homologated, and after a decent performance in 2020, they will be looking to be more competitive in the midfield this year. Sadly, Fernando Alonso was unable to be there for the launch due to COVID restrictions, but the team are clearly very excited about their new driver lineup, which is lovely to hear, and we look forward to seeing if the team's excitement and hopes for 2021 come to fruition this season. The Aston Martin launch wasted no time in emphasising the Britishness of the brand, with British rapper Santan Dave stating in his video voiceover that Aston Martin is in our blood. The video was dramatic, drawing on the nostalgia of the good old days in racing, and then the development of new technology to bring us to the AMR21. The launch was hosted by Gemma Arterton, who introduced Lawrence Stroll, who stood in front of the 2021 car draped in a Union Jack while he praised the development teams and promised that this was just the beginning. The car was unveiled by Seb and Lance pulling the flag back to reveal the AMR21. The livery is nice, even if there have been comparisons to a watermelon. The body is mostly the classic Aston Martin racing green, which is hands down the prettiest colour in the field. The highlights are in pink, but it's not too much, especially after the past few years of Racing Point's Pepto-Bismol mobile. The car is of course based on last year's design, despite the new colour scheme, and last year's car was pretty competitive, finishing fourth in the Constructors' Championship and giving us some exciting racing. The team have upgraded the chassis, and there will no doubt be more than a few 2020 Mercedes parts under the body. The launch was pretty star-studded, with messages from Tom Brady and James Bond himself, Daniel Craig. We also got to see Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll in their green race gear, and it was nice to see Seb looking and sounding genuinely excited for the new car and season. They seem hungry for success in 2021, and as you'll have seen in our prediction video, we think this will be a good year for them. Haas next with the VF21. It was a quiet launch, given the team's decision to not make changes to the 2021 car and instead focus all of its resources on development for 2022, when there will be fewer restrictions and an overhaul on the technical rulebook. Many have speculated that Haas are essentially sacrificing this season for the good of next year, but Gunther Steiner has argued that is a sacrifice they are prepared to make. At the very least, it will mean we get some interesting Gunther moments in next year's Drive to Survive. What we do know from the launch of the VF21 is that, coming as a surprise to no one, the team's newest sponsor is Uralkali, the company owned by new Haas driver Nikita Mazepin's father. As such, the colours on the car's livery have changed a bit. The chassis is still mostly white, with red highlights, but replacing the black of last year is a new blue, giving the car a Russian flag look. It's quite a retro look, and not a bad one, but the Russian look is causing some raised eyebrows. Russian athletes are currently banned from competing at World Championship events after investigations into state-sponsored doping and cover-ups at the 2014 Winter Olympics. This means we already knew Mazepin was not permitted to race under the Russian flag this year, but Gunther claims the new livery was designed before this was confirmed, and argues that they are not displaying the Russian flag, merely using the colours on the car. The World Anti-Doping Agency are looking into the livery, and I guess we wait to hear if Haas need to get the paint pots out before they hit the track in Bahrain later in the month. Finally, we have the Williams, whose launch was intended to use an augmented reality app, only for it to be hacked prior to launch, so the app was pulled from the App and Play Store, and we had to make do with images instead. Williams are kicking off a new era with the FW43B, but keeping team founder Frank Williams' initials in the car model number to show they've not forgotten where they've come from. The new look livery is still white and blue, but now with yellow highlights. The livery has been inspired by the Williams cars of the 80s and 90s, an era they clearly hope to mimic as they move forward. The light and dark blue stripes toward the rear of the chassis are a fresh look, and it will stand out better on the grid than last year's mostly white car. It looks good, and George Russell pointed out the car is looking to the future while remembering the history. The team will definitely be hoping to end their languishing in last place, and given Haas's decision not to make any adjustments to the car this year, they may well have a chance to beat both the American team and possibly even Alfa Romeo. It'll definitely be interesting to watch. With just the Ferrari launch to go, what do you guys think so far? What liveries got you excited and which ones made you yawn? Let us know in the comments and hit the like and subscribe buttons to get more Formula 1 content next time.